appreciate that. You may lose a key person, but you are helping them out. That's true servant leadership. Help your people meet their aspirations for their life. Criticize or constructively comment in private. You know, you call it criticism. I call it constructive comments or improvement, okay? In private, but praise in public. In group meetings, let all your people give their input first. If you lay out on the table how you feel, they're not going to say a word. You think they're going to say something that's not in accordance with what you're figuring out? You've already figured out? Heck no. You get your input from your people in staff meetings and in committee meetings and so forth, and then you soak it all up. And if you have to make a decision and announce it that day, fine. But you might learn something new. You learn something new all the time from your people. Question fairly. Don't put them down. Don't put your people down. Question fairly and say, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good idea. Let me think about that. Obtain input. Make a decision and stick with it until new information evolves. In our cadet prayer at West Point, we prayed, make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong. All of us must choose the harder right when faced with decisions of right and wrong, ethically or morally. This relates to your personal life also, not just career-wise. Set an example of righteousness and doing right for your family and your loved ones also. For some of my personal history, I'm an American, period, okay? But the fact is the heritage of my family represents some of the heritage of many of you in this room. It relates to Spain. My maternal grandfather was Plácido de la Fuente from Asturias, Spain, that migrated 100 years ago into Mexico, came into the United States. Germany, my maternal grandmother was in a business family in Matamoros, Mexico. She never learned English. And Scotland, my father's family came down from Scotland. This is the land to which I pledge my allegiance, not some foreign land, no matter whether you're a first generation or whatever. If you're going to be here, pledge allegiance to this land. I mean, if you're not a citizen, I understand that. But, you know, pledge allegiance to this country if you're going to make a living here in this country. As young American leaders, you can make a difference as young patriots by understanding and taking to heart the corporate national history. We must focus on our shared values, not the dividing aspects of skin color, background, social status, income level, and ethnicity. We should judge people only by what Thomas Jefferson judged them by, the third president of the United States. Talent and virtue. Talent and virtue. From my military, cadet, and political backgrounds, I have learned and attempted to reflect certain attributes and characteristics that reflect good leadership. By the way, people say, oh, it's great to be a graduate of West Point. And I said, yeah, it's great to be a graduate of West Point, have it on your resume. Great place to be from, but not at. At West Point, I grew in a life based on the values of our motto, which I already mentioned, duty, honor, country. When I studied a great general of World War II, whom I met, General Omar Bradley, commanded the forces that attacked on D-Day in northern France. He had a reputation for being firm but fair. He was known for never yelling at anybody. Can you imagine a guy being a five-star general never yelling at anybody? Well, apparently he didn't. Very mild-mannered, but that's the way he was. Anytime you have to raise your voice, you're showing weakness, he said. So keep that in mind. There was a general from Germany that came to help our troops and train them at Valley Forge. His name was von Steuben. In Germany, he said, we tell our soldiers what to do. In other words, dogmatically and dynamically tell them exactly what to do in orders. He said to General Washington, over here, you tell your soldiers why they should do something. And they do it. That works in the private sector also. One of the greatest stories I ever heard about attitude. This is the attitude of a winner, somebody that cares. Talked to a gentleman several years ago that had been in Germany at what they call their gas houses, their bars over in Germany, you know. Some German that had been in World War II came over and sat next to the table and said, I got a story to tell you about an American soldier. And he related it to me, and I've never forgotten it. He says, we had surrounded an American unit in the Battle of the Bulge, and we picked them off all day long. They wouldn't give up. We asked them 3 times. We yelled out, surrender, surrender, surrender. They never surrendered. At the end of the day, there was 1 man left in the unit. 1 American soldier. He tried to get under a bush with his rifle, and he couldn't hide there. They found him. He got out. Talk about attitude. He threw his rifle down. He said, it's been one hell of a day. Now that's what you call attitude in the military. And you all have attitudes of what you do. Be positive as leaders. If you're going to be upset about something, keep it to yourself. Tell your spouse, tell your best friend, but don't show it to your people. Keep it from them. Maintain good health and conditioning. Eat right, exercise, and avoid abuse of stimulants. Many careers are curtailed because of inappropriate drinking habits and use of drugs. Maintain your own personal intelligence and emotional quotient. To keep up morale of others, express your gratitude. Express your gratitude and send thank you notes. Linda and I have recently sent some pretty nice little wedding gifts to two people. No thank yous. That is a real uncivil thing to do. So in business, when somebody does something for you, you have an interview, somebody does something to help you, send them a thank you note. I know it's real simple to do an email and get it off your list of things to do, but a written thank you note matters. People remember that. Keep an open mind. One of the things that Abraham Lincoln did, keep an open mind. One of the major things when I read about his history. He was that kind of guy that would go in and listen to people if they disagreed with him. He said, well, tell me why you disagree with what I'm doing. Listen. A good leader listens. You learn nothing when you're talking. Listen, listen, listen. Ask questions. I was trained as a prisoner interrogator in Vietnam. I didn't have any prisoners to interrogate. That's why I transferred to Special Forces. I got in more stuff than I ever would have dreamed in my life that I would have been in as a 24-year-old Army captain in Vietnam. A corollary to listening is to take your time in making major decisions. Well, I know I left you hanging that early morning in Vietnam. Here's the rest of the story. I think, yeah. Okay, this was my Special Forces camp where I was in the spring of 1967. In mid-June 1967, two patrols from our camp were ambushed several miles away by a regular Army battalion of communists who had moved into our area from Cambodia, which was a privileged sanctuary at the time. The rules of engagement were we couldn't go into Cambodia, so they'd attack us, come in and kill us, and go back across the border. So several Americans had been killed. At 4:30 a.m. on June 17, 1967, 5 hours from leaving my camp, because I was an intelligence officer, clandestine mission. I had a false name, false ID. Nobody knew I was there for other reasons, ostensibly, but I was there as an intelligence collection officer. So when these patrols came in, my commanding officer, I'm picking you up at 9 a.m. Saturday morning, June 17th. At 4:30, I was the officer in charge, the American Green Beret in charge of the inner perimeter. And awake when the attack started. I was 4.5 hours from safety. I was going to be down in Saigon on an airplane getting me out of there. Heavy attack started. I did the things that you do and you're trained to do when you're in the military, which is get counter battery fire on the enemy positions up on the hillside that's above this area right here. Let me turn around here. Rachel, I'm going over and I apologize. So on that high ground there is where the enemy set up their mortar positions. I was right in front of this middle building on the concrete block there. My medic was in the bunker to the left. I was in the middle of that looking to the enemy positions when a mortar round hit to my left rear. It knocked me forward. I didn't know what happened. When you get wounded in combat, you either yell out for mother or God. I decided to go straight to the top of the chain of command. I said, oh God, I'm dead. Okay, I wasn't. And I was knocked out and I lost about 25 pints of blood, which were later put in me back at the MASH, the Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. Combat medic Jimmy Hill came up out of that bunker to the left of the big tall building. A couple of Green Berets came out when I yelled, took me down there. He started up and took a piece of shrapnel in his left shoulder that wasn't taken out for a day and a half because he was the only medic around, and he treated 70 more people after the attack. And, I was taken out pretty quickly, hour and a half, 2 hours, who knows when you get hurt. But he went under the barrage of fire to get morphine and to get plasma, and Jimmy Hill saved my life. Next. When we're in the military, we always have personal heroes. This is my personal hero. Jimmy Hill. He'd only been in country for 1 week, and I was his first combat casualty. years later, and we're still in touch. We saw each other just a year and a half ago. I said, Jimmy, he told me I was his first combat casualty. He said, Jimmy, if I known I was your first combat casualty, I'd ask for a second opinion. He did a great job for me. Next. This is what the attack damage looked like. It's kind of hard with the lights on, but over to the right, you see the concrete. You see how bad the damage was from a mortar shell or rocket shell that knocked out the whole building and knocked out the sandbags. And over to the right, you see a little drainage ditch. That literally is where I was hit. A few years ago, somebody that was in the camp after I left sent me this slide. So it's nice to have closure on what happened to you in the war. Next. I lost my left leg traumatically below the knee. There was nothing left. I kept my right leg for 10 days. Got medevac back to the United States very quickly. The medevac choppers came in and picked up 9 of us that were wounded and 2 killed out of 25 Americans, so we had 44% casualties. I was in the hospital 15 months. I lost track of the stitches. I got 150, 200 stitches in me, and I've had 20 surgeries. So, you talk about resilience, getting knocked down in your life with your personal situations, or later with your children's situations, or whatever, and in business and so forth. You may lose your job, or you need to do something else. You got to have what's called resilience. And so keep in mind, you always come back. Okay, I was in a closed psychiatric ward for 14 weeks, and the 8th month of a 15-month stay. Now you talk about being devastated. I hadn't learned to walk yet. Both my legs were off. Here I was, 25 years old. Just by the grace of God was I able to survive emotionally and bring back that EQ and have resilience and go on with my life to a few minor successes, none in a massive wealth for sure, but many successes in my life. But it was a horrible, horrible 14 weeks in a closed psychiatric ward. I took pills for 8 years, and I saw psychiatrists for 8 years. In the middle 70s, I got my faith acts squared away, and I haven't had to take any pills or psychiatrists for 40 years, people. No drugs, no antidepressants. Somebody start clapping. I can hear that. I want to hear that. Yes. Resilience. Never, ever, 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 ever give up. Repeating words of Winston Churchill in World War II when they were devastated by the battle for Britain. Never, never give up. Next. I had a goal to learn how to ski on artificial legs. And those extra little side ski handles, So I did it a couple of times. That was enough. I don't want to break any more bones. So I didn't do it again. 1968, I returned. I was retired, and somebody, did you call me a general? I'm a captain. Retired captain only, okay? But I was proud to be a captain. I'm just Alan, I do have a title called the Honorable because of a couple of nominations by President George H.W. Bush up in Washington and confirmation by the United States Senate twice. And people say, so you're an Honorable, huh? I said, yeah. How long do you keep the Honorable? I said, till I get a felony conviction. My first job that I interviewed for in spring of my second year SMU MBA was with Ross Perot. Tremendous guy. Ross Perot wrote the foreword to my first book, which is out of print, called Wounded Soldier, Healing Warrior. Story of my recovery and my Vietnam history and my life. A few copies are left on Amazon if you care. Buy them up, so they're finished, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have any copies left. He had a plaque behind his desk that I saw as soon as I went in for the interview. Eagles don't flock, you have to find them one at a time. He evaluated his employees by one very important quality, that of leadership potential early in life. He appreciated people who served in the military. I became his personal financial assistant. I worked myself so hard, which you've got to be careful of. You've got to pace yourself. okay, especially when you get to a new job. I worked myself so hard, I had a relapse of my post-traumatic stress. I had to go to the hospital, had to stop working for Ross Perot. But we've been friends through the years, and he's always been very kind to me. Try to be a problem avoider, not just a problem solver. Plan ahead, think things through, fix the problem, not the people. But don't become the type of person who solves big problems at work, but is unable to solve little ones at home. Focus on at home. I left my home one time with when I was married the first time, and we'd had a fight or something, and so there wasn't peace in the family. Boy, did God zap me. I'm in a car going to work at the governor's office in Austin. First car I see is a bumper sticker, "World Peace starts at home." Bingo, boy was I zapped, okay? So keep that in mind. You can do, world peace like the Miss Americas do. What do you want? World peace and so forth. They wave their hands and all. But world peace starts at home. Always reflect candor. Do not deceive. Attitude is great, but distinguish yourself with ambition, enthusiasm, and desire for excellence. I worked for Governor Bill Clements for 30 months, the Capitol Building, Austin, Texas. I was a special assistant to administration. If this is my office, his office is about where that wall is, past his secretary and in the governor's office, so I had a really tight job with him. In 30 months, I've only chewed out twice. I won't tell you for what reasons, and I won't answer that in the Q&A either. Slide 9. Next. Sorry tree. Until I got my act together in the 70s, and I'm still working on it, I look like this sorry tree. Okay, really sorry tree. Next slide. I wanted to look like this tree. Strong root system, grass mowed, and it looks good, and it has strong limbs, and it has strong leaves, I guess it's in the spring, whatever, but that's what I want it to look like. Now, I am not here to proselytize on you with my faith, but I have to tell you, part of my story is my faith, period. I go to military bases and I talk to the troops, and I talk to them about their wounds and post-traumatic stress and feeling sorry for themselves. And I said, look, I don't care if you're Jewish, I don't care if you're Buddhist, I don't care if you're Confucian, I don't care if you're Hindu, I don't care if you're Muslim, I don't care what you do. You work your faith for your healing. I got to tell y'all, the only reason I am who I am today with my attitude back, obviously, is because I am a follower of the Lord Jesus Christ, who I always believed was my Savior. But in 1975, Jesus was not just Savior, He was Lord of my life. And I got my faith act together, folks. And once again, you don't have to follow that. Whoever you are, whatever you are, atheist, whatever, just look at me and it worked for me. If it works for me, it's good. Okay, so you just work your own deal. My character is much formed by my spiritual values. At the end of my talk before the Q&A, James is going to get some friends to pass out these little tracts that I have that tell my story. And my email address is on there in case you ever want to get in contact with me. I suggest 2 books to you, above and beyond all your textbooks. 2 books. 2 valuable sources for enhancing your emotional intelligence and your servant leadership qualities. Book of Proverbs in the Old Testament, and How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. 2 books. Put it on your reading list, folks. I end with these final comments. I'm sure Rachel is glad. Number 1, I've never been ashamed to be termed a straight arrow. My camp name at a summer camp I used to take my children to was Straight Arrow. And that was okay with me. Number 2, General Douglas MacArthur was my big hero. He spoke at West Point in 1962 to the farewell address to Corps cadets, and I'd seen him in Japan in 1949 on the steps of the Daiichi building in downtown Tokyo. He was on a ship in 1943 with President Roosevelt, who came out in the Pacific to visit with him. He hadn't been back to the United States from 1935 to 1943, and the president said, Mac, which is his nickname, only the president called him Mac, obviously, a big deal general. He said, Mac, you ought to come back to the United States. Things are changing. He said, the things I believe in never change. Technology may change, businesses may change, your life may change, but basic things of character and ethics and servant leadership are things that never change. Serve with honor in whatever you undertake. Now, I am. Anybody 6'2" in the audience? If you're 6'2", stand up. Whoa, only 4 people, 5 people. All right, that's good. Anybody 5'9" in the audience? Stay standing. 5'9", stand up. All right. Anybody 4'7"? No, nobody's 4'7". I was 5'9" when I was wounded. Sit down, everybody. I was 5'9" when I was wounded. I went to 4'7". Doctor comes to my bed. He says, "Captain, how tall do you want to be with your artificial leg?" Bingo! My dad, by the way, I just remembered, my dad graduated from North Texas Agricultural College, 2-year school, 1936. It's now UTA. In my dad's records, he was here for 1 semester, either at TWU or UNT in 1936, probably. My dad had to go get a job because he had zilch money during the Depression. But anyway, my dad was 6'2", my mother's about 5'3", so I evened out at 5'9", okay? So when I was wounded, I was 5'9". He waited about 30 seconds. He said, "Well, actually, you should be shorter because you will walk better." I said, my attitude, seeping out with anger. I said, "Well, why'd you ask me?" I said, "How short?" He said, 5'8" or 5'7". I said, "Okay, 5'8". So in 1968, my first set of legs, 5'8". 1978, I was picked by Governor Bill Clements out of Republic Bank Trust Investments Trust Bond Department to go to Austin. I've been a political activist involved with this campaign. Go to Austin to be a special assistant administration. Befitting my new and lofty position in the state capitol, I went to 5'11", with a new set of legs. Standing on the elevator with Governor Clements, who was 5'8", and picked me at 5'8". I said, "Governor, guess what's happening tomorrow?" He says, "What?" I said, "I'm going to be taller than you." He said, "What?" I said, "Yes, I'm going to be taller than you. I'm getting a new set of legs." He said, "Okay, fine." So he laughed. He had a good sense of humor. So 5'11", 6 foot, in 19, when you're 75, you lose track of decades. 1989, I was going to be a presidential appointee, Senate confirmation at Department of Veterans Affairs. Befitting my new and exalted position, I went to 6'1" before I went to Washington. When I came back, I worked at the Republic Bank, at the hospital in Dallas, VA hospital. Got my new set of legs at 6'2". So I finished my talk with 2 morals relative to this story. Number 1, never give up on your goals in life. I always had a goal to be 6'2". Number 2, grow in all your jobs. Thank you. You want to take this out? Q&A? Okay.
Anybody have some questions for Alan?
Jane's going to pass out these tracts at the table. Any questions? You tired? Sleepy? Yes. Back there.
You can chat. I know you can chat.
Hi, how are you? My name is Edgar Rangel. I'm a finance major. I'm currently a junior. And I was wondering what's the best way to communicate in a group setting?
Best way to communicate in a group setting?
Yes, sir. With
You mean like a committee meeting or people that are working for you or that you're working for?
Well, I'm currently a new president of a new organization I created. I find it difficult communicating with multiple organizations. And I want to know, how do you communicate with people that have different goals? And how do you do that to work together?
Well, I think that the most important thing in communication is caring about everybody, okay? If you show a servant leadership attitude of caring for people, that's going to show forth in your countenance and in your personality. And they are going to be drawn to you, okay, to listen to you. I don't have any specifics of how I would handle people from